Hello and welcome to the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network Sunday special interview. Very, very exciting today because on the show I have a man who in the 90s hosted a pioneering show, Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Today he hosts Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, and he's the author of this book recently released, Matt Memories, My Wild Life in Pro Wrestling, Country Music, and with the Mets. Very happy to welcome to the show, John Arezzi. John, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, you're welcome. You had to put in the wildlife. That's important.
I'm sorry. Did I leave wildlife?
No, you did.
out?
No, I'm only kidding with you.
Okay.
No, it was crazy wild ride. So
yeah, no. Well, first question: am I allowed to call you Big Pork Barbecue? Is that
what
allowed?
the hell? I mean, the Power Twins and Sunny Beach would really embrace that. So because it gives them joy, I will certainly allow you to call me Big Pork Barbecue.
Okay. Actually, I'll just call you John, but that was a great story on how you got that name. Yeah. And the book is fantastic, by the way. I zipped through it. Great read. What inspired you to write a book about your wildlife?
I mean, it was kind of something in the back of my mind for quite a while. I mean, people have told me there was a book in me, and, everyone is like, a lot of people think that. It was in the back of my mind. And then it really was me winding down in the music business a little bit and kind of looking at the impending slowing down of my career, where I was like, well, maybe it's time. And the pieces fell together pretty quickly. I mean, I really pitched the idea in early 2019 when I just got back into wrestling. And to my surprise, it happened fairly quickly once Greg Oliver signed on to do the book with me.
All right, great. So you weren't afraid to take risks. You were always following your passion. Very, very inspiring, whether it's baseball, wrestling, country music. Do you hope this book inspires people to follow their passions? And is that what you're hoping to do?
I think, it's there to entertain. It's there to tell some great stories, but it is an inspirational book in a lot of ways. I mean, for me personally, and it doesn't, a lot of people can relate, or some people can't, whatever. I have always been someone who was able to rise up from the ashes, so to speak, and forge ahead and change direction when necessary, and just never give up. I mean, life isn't over until it's over. So as long as you can breathe and as long as you have any will to succeed, roll the dice, give it a shot, see what happens.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So let's go back to 1964. That's when the pro wrestling bug hit you. What was it about Bruno Sammartino that you loved so much? Why did he become your hero?
Well, it was just very odd, that very first show that I saw on television, when he was supposed to be in a tag team match with Antonio Pugliese, and he wasn't there. And I was watching something I'd never seen before. And then he shows up and with the suitcases in his hand. And I was like, who is this guy? And then find out he's the world champion, and find out he's Italian and I was Italian. And it was like an instant connection to this superhero of the same ethnicity. So that's what did it at the age of 7, I think I was.
Yeah, well, Bruno Sammartino was the reason why I became a professional wrestling fan. My story is I was at my grandfather's house, 1978, running around his apartment. He said, Louis, do you know who Bruno Sammartino is? I said, no. He said, Louis, sit down. He's coming on. So I sat down, listened to my grandfather, I watched him, and I was a fan ever since. There was just something about Bruno that I tried. So let's jump to 1972, actually, because you were at the Bruno Sammartino Pedro Morales match. Besides finding out that pro wrestling was predetermined, what do you remember about that match? Because me, that's one match that I would love to see, but there's no videotape or any recordings of it. So what do you remember about that match?
I remember it was a scientific match. I mean, it was really maybe they exchanged punches maybe once or twice, and then they stopped, and they continued their scientific wrestling. I remember that it was kind of boring in a way.
Okay.
But it did have that excitement because it was the match of the century, and it was rainy, it was cold, the seats were far away. When we showed up at Shea Stadium, it was like you're in the box seats, the ring is on second base, and it just seemed like a long distance away. And George Animal Steel trying to do a run-in during the middle of the match. It was just it was exciting and historic, but it was also not the payoff that I had hoped for.
Yeah, I know. In your book, you said in 1972, Christmas, you had asked for an 8mm camera. I kind of wish you had asked for that camera in 1971, because I'm sure you would have filmed some of that match. Do you think any footage of that match is available anywhere?
I have never seen a second of
Yeah,
any footage.
yeah,
So it's certainly tragic, especially the McMahons should have certainly captured that.
absolutely, man. It's my hope
And they
that,
might have. I mean, you never know what's in their
yeah.
vaults.
Yeah, it's my hope that somebody somewhere recorded some bit of that match. To me, that's a holy grail of matches. I want to see any bit of that match they can. Hopefully one day I'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
So 1977, you decided to give pro wrestling a try. You had a 2-match, almost 3-match career. So tell me about being in the ring with Dusty Rhodes.
It was January 10th of 78. And it was nerve-wracking. I was kind of like, not only you have butterflies, but you have, you're scared. I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. I don't even know to this day why I was in there. Why my mental, my brain thought of wanting to go into the ring, and because I had connections, I did it. But there was a number, and it was an embarrassment. It was embarrassing to me to do it. I mean, I was embarrassed in front of my friends that here I am, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I get the shit kicked out of me, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading. You said that you hit Dusty with some stiff shots. You hit him with a knee, almost hit him in the jaw, and he said he took you, and he said, "I have to teach you a lesson." What were you thinking at that precise moment when Dusty Rhodes says to you, "I got to teach you a lesson"?
I knew I was in trouble, and I was hoping that I didn't get too hurt or too embarrassed.
Okay, now here's a question I think only you can answer. What's it like having Dusty Rhodes sit on your head?
Oh, it wasn't pleasant.
Oh, better Dusty.
Fortunately, he didn't have gas that day.
Okay, better Dusty than Andre the Giant. I guess you could look at it that way.
I guess, yeah, that would be a big problem, so to speak.
So what would have happened? I know Gorilla Monsoon had said after your second match, you and the tag team match, that your night is done. What would have happened though if he said, "All right, you're next against Bob Backlund"? How do you think that match would have gone?
Oh, I would have been stretched. There was no doubt that he would have taken me and stretched the shit out of me. He would have taught me a lesson worse than Dusty did, for sure.
Yeah, that would have been a little sad to see. I was thinking he might have maybe it would have been a shoot match and he would have teach you a lesson. I mean,
on the other hand, I could have messed up and hurt him, and then he would have never got the title. Then Billy Graham could have kept it for a while longer.
And speaking of which,
wrestling fans would have been happier, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think McMahon Sr. made a mistake not turning Billy Graham babyface when he had the title?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Billy had such charisma, and he was so wanted. I mean, the fans wanted to cheer him, and he could have been Hulk Hogan, really.
Absolutely. How loud do you think Madison Square Garden would have been if Bruno Sammartino walked down the aisle with superstar Billy Graham in a tag team match? How loud would that pop have been?
Explosive. That would have been incredible.
Oh man, I always think about that. I agree. I think he should have kept the title on Billy Graham. I was a Backlund fan, but I think Billy Graham should have held on to that title. So let's switch gears. You met Andy Kaufman early in your career. I was a big Andy Kaufman, a former stand-up comedian myself. Andy Kaufman was one of my heroes. Tell me a little bit about Andy Kaufman and what you thought about the Lawler-Andy Kaufman feud.
Mm-hmm. Well, Andy, I mean, I was a fan of his when I first seen him on Saturday Night Live. I think it was my first year of college, 75. And he was just this odd, eccentric comedian that you didn't know. You don't know what he was doing. Like he would just go on TV and play a record and mouth it like the Mighty Mouse tune. I mean, like, who is this guy? And then, you find out that he went to your college. And that was kind of, that was a big talk. When he broke in 75, the kids at the college were like, Andy Kaufman went here. And then when I was working in the summer in the admissions office, giving tours to prospective students, Andy comes in and asks for his transcripts. And, and I was the fortunate one to give him a tour of the campus. And it was, for me, pretty thrilling. And then when I said I did a pro wrestling talk show there, not knowing how much he loved wrestling, that was, his eyes just bugged out. And I wish at the time I would have told him that that I was running the Fred Blassie fan club, because, you know, look at the connection he had with Freddie. But you know, always followed Andy, and over the years when he did that angle with Lawler, I thought it was incredible. And the pile driver, and I mean, it was just because I had never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And then getting a chance to meet Andy in '82 again, backstage at the Garden, and he was wearing the neck brace, and I mean, it was just kind of a short interaction. I wish I would have had more interaction with him because of his legendary status, and I really would have loved to get to know him as a person.
Yeah, definitely a legendary comedian for sure. Now, you mentioned Fred Blassie. You started the Fred Blassie fan club in the early 70s, and he actually wrote you a letter, and you actually get to meet him a few times. It must have been a thrill meeting Fred Blassie for the first time.
Oh, it was amazing. And I was amazed when I got the letter from him, because I had been corresponding with Jeff Walton, who really had the longest run of a Fred Blassie fan club in the 60s. And early, you know, I think he ended it in 70, around there, 69. But Jeff was so instrumental in introducing me to Freddie and authenticating the permission slip that Blassie signed. But when I got that letter from Fred, that first one, it was just, I couldn't believe that he wrote me. And then at the end, he said, I hope to see you at the Garden on March 26th. And that was my way to say, I'm going to meet this guy. And I bring the letter to the Garden, show it to security. They bring it in the back. And a few minutes later, I'm walking backstage and meeting Freddie Blassie. And it was, I was quite nervous. I mean, because here is the guy that in the flesh, the tan, the white, you know, blondish hair, the rough voice. And it's like the legend that I've read about in the magazines since the 60s when I started reading about him. And it was like, here he is. And I'm running his fan club.
Yeah. He didn't try to bite you in the forehead or anything like that.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I didn't want to piss him off. I didn't, you know, the first thing I did actually was like when I got in the back and Bill Apter was interviewing him and Captain Lou Albano. And I was just watching from a few feet away. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever done in my life, just to be hanging out back here. But he was very polite. He was very gracious. He answered my silly, stupid questions back then, which I was so nervous. It was the first time I ever interviewed anyone. And it was quite memorable. And I remember it to this day like it was only happened yesterday.
So you were only 14 at the time, though, right? Were you 14?
Yeah, in 71, I started at 72. 73 was when I met him, March of 73. So I started the fan club. I got the permission slip signed in December of 71.
Okay.
Sent it off to California after a few months. Got it back. It was authentic. I actually put out my first newsletter, King of Men. I believe it was November of 72. Okay. So 57. I was 15 when I met Fred.
That had to be an absolute thrill for you as a teenager to be backstage meeting Fred Blassie, seeing Bill Apter interviewing Captain Lou Albano. That must have been an absolute thrill for you.
It gave me incentive.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it gave me an incentive, and it gave me this drive to want to do more of that. Like, I have to find a way to get back here regularly and cover this business professionally. And I was able to do that.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Great stuff. I'm reading this and I'm like, I'm almost jealous. I'm like, wow, he got to meet Fred Blassie. He got to meet. Well, you met Bruno Sammartino. I met Bruno Sammartino when he was with the WWF, which was one of the biggest tours of my life. But I was living my dream through you when I was reading the book. Like, you're really meeting all these great stars, and I wish it was me. But great stuff. So let's fast forward. Pro Wrestling Spotlight. I used to listen all the time in the 90s. And I actually called in one time. Cactus Jack was on. It was Lex Luger was the champion. I asked him a question if he'd go after Lex Luger in the WCW title. So what did you enjoy most about hosting the Pro Wrestling Spotlight?
Well, it was an adventure. I mean, it evolved. It's, you know, it was like, I didn't know what it was going to be in the beginning. And it was good to be on the air to talk about wrestling and start getting guests, and the show continued to grow and get bigger, and it led to other opportunities. But it was real cool. But you got to remember that I started this little talk show in college, Pro Wrestling Spotlight, in my freshman year of junior college, and so I had a little experience with it. But when you take it and you started getting, you know, calls not just from your dorm mates but from the public, that's what set it off, and then it was an evolution, but it was enjoyable, and then it wasn't enjoyable. And I mean, it was a roller coaster, as we document on Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now with Brian Last. I was uploading an episode today, and it was one where I was having some financial difficulties, and I'm like, we're going on a 2-week sabbatical because I can't pay the station.
Yeah.
So I mean, that brought back like, oh shit, there was a lot of not just good times, but a lot of really hard struggles.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to call every week, but I was just too nervous to call. Then one time I just built up enough courage. Just Cactus Jack was on, had the question, and thankfully I got through. And you said there was financial struggles. I don't know if you remember that you brought the Wiz on one time as an advertiser. And you seemed so thrilled that the Wiz was I think it was like 6 weeks out of advertising from the Wiz. And I remember listening to that going, oh, this is great. They got the Wiz. So they're going to be on for a long time now. Do you remember getting the Wiz? Do you remember bringing on the Wiz?
I don't actually. I know
Okay.
I will, because it really jars my memory when you say things, and I hear things from, like, every time I listen to an episode, because I haven't heard them in 30 years.
Okay.
I put one up there, and then it's the Wiz. Yeah, because I mean, there was some national advertisers. Do you remember, was it GBB or BAB or EBD? Do you know which one it was?
I think it was BAB. I think it was BAB.
Okay.
Yeah. So I and I'm hoping that you'll eventually get to my episode, because I was scrolling through the episodes seeing if you had uploaded my episode yet, but I think Luger was champion in 92, so it was a 92 episode that I had called in.
Well, we're a year away from that. So
okay,
hang tight. You'll hear it.
I'll be patient. I'll be patient. So you were part of a big Phil Donahue show in 1982 about steroids, sexual misconduct. You mentioned that before they sent a limo to pick you up, you were out on errands, and someone had two guys that showed up to your house when you weren't there, and they told your mom that they want to know if you lived there, and they wanted her to tell you that this is a dangerous neighborhood. Did that scare you? Were you looking over your shoulder after that moment?
Yeah, I was concerned, because it really could have been anyone. I mean, there were a lot of people being talked about in those days about things, and I would tend to believe it wasn't McMahon.
Okay.
But I mean, who knows? Because you had so many people involved at that time. So it was, who knows who did it, but it happened, and that's what scared me. Because my mom was staying with me at the time, and she had her own struggles, and she was paranoid to begin with. So, but she handled it like a trooper, and I did as well.
How do you feel about Vince McMahon today? Do you still what are your thoughts on him?
He's a genius.
Okay.
He he built this multi-billion-dollar company. He did some amazing things in the business, and for his presentation of it today and what's going on with it today is it's certainly not my cup of tea, but it's part of evolution. Everything can't stay the same. But what I really respect about him now more than I ever have is that if it's his decision and his vision now to finally start paying tribute to the legends more, that's a good thing. But it could be that he's polishing up this company for sale, and he knows that older demographic like us are going to want to see the legends and hear about the legends, and that's why the ratings for these shows are through the roof right now with the biographies and lost treasures. And so who knows? I mean, but I think he's a genius no matter what he's done. When you can negotiate three $1 billion deals with three different companies in a matter of a few years, you are a master at what you do.
So you say you don't watch wrestling today, or do you watch any wrestling at all today?
I skim through it.
Okay.
I DVR everything, and I skim through it, and I stop when I want to see something. I don't like matches filled with nothing but high spots. I like stories being told, and stories today last, a month or two, maybe, and then they move on to something else, where years ago, something built for 6 months sometimes before the payoff. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't happen anymore. And I just, it's part of me aging. It's like, I'm an old guy. I like the old days, like most old people do.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, nothing today. They can't do anything today that would have matched. That would match Bruno Sammartino versus Larry Zbyszko. When I first saw Larry Zbyszko turn on Bruno Sammartino, my grandfather called me up. He said, "That goddamn son of a bitch, Zbyszko, Bruno's gonna kill him." You know, I wanted to go look for Larry Zbyszko. I wanted my dad to drive me around. I was so angry, and you're not going to get that today with anything they do.
No, not at all. I mean, that was one of the best heel turns in the history of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I wish we could go back. I prefer wrestling then than I do now. 100%. But let's switch gears. We're both Met fans. You got your Met shirt on. I got my Mets hat on. So you were at Game 4, 1969 World Series. You saw the miracle catch by Ron Swoboda. I wasn't born yet, so I've only seen video clips of it. Tell me what it was like to be in the stadium at Shea Stadium when he made that catch. How loud was the crowd when he made that catch?
It was surreal for me. I mean, just to be able to go to the World Series. I mean, I was a kid. I was 12. And my dad that morning surprised me with the tickets, and Seaver I loved, and Swoboda I loved, and that place was rocking, and it was a close game, and Seaver was pitching masterfully, and then when that line drive hit and Swoboda went for it, no one in the park thought he was going to catch it. Yeah. And then when he caught it and jumped right up and threw the ball in, even though the run scored. It was explosive. It was like people they were losing their mind.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, I watched that clip over and over again. Great going to I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, the only thing I compare it to, and it's Buckner. It's the ball through Buckner's legs when I was there, because I wanted to leave. The Mets were losing to the Red Sox, and I didn't want to see the Red Sox clinch on our home field, and then the scoreboard made a mistake and put up congratulations to the Boston Red Sox. And I'm there with my business partners at the time. And I'm like, I want to get out of here. I don't want to stay. Okay. And they're like, no, we're going to stay. And all of a sudden, what happens? The miracle inning and all of that. So it was, but that's the only thing I compare it to, because I thought the stadium was going to collapse when Buckner missed that ball. I thought the stadium was going to collapse. And in 69, it was still explosive, and it was still a memory that's just embedded in my head.
Who had the better team, 1969 Mets or 1986 Mets, in your opinion?
They're different. Okay. They were dominating in 86. They were cocky, and they were arrogant, and they were fighting, and they were getting in trouble, and they were bad boys. And the 69 Mets was miracle. It was Hodges. It was like this team of castaways in a lot of ways, and some homegrown talent, and a wonderful manager, and it all came together in Seaver's leadership. So I mean, it was a total different dynamic of those two teams, and I love them equally. I do.
Yeah, were you devastated when they traded Seaver?
Yes, I stopped being a Mets fan in 77, 78, 79, and 80. I only went back to being a Mets fan when they sold the team, because the Dilo Rays, and I mean, that regime, when they sold Seaver, was the end of it. And I became a Yankee fan for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And I lived in Boston. I mean, and my friends were Yankee fans, and I fell in love with Reggie and the team, and Billy Martin, and Thurman Munson, and Chambliss, and all of them. And I was a Yankee fan.
Yeah, I can never go that far. I've been angry at the Mets over the years, but I can never become a Met. Actually, I'm a Red Sox fan as well. I got my Red Sox hat.
I am too. I love the Sox. I've always loved this. I love the Sox in '67. I mean, that was my first World Series that I watched on TV. Okay, was the '67 Red Sox, and that run, and they were tied towards the end of the season. And Jim Lomborg, and I was a big Tony Conigliaro fan. Okay, and he got hit in the eye, and it ruined his career. But yeah, I mean, I love the Sox.
Yeah, I'm anti-Yankee, so Mets, Red Sox, those.
I can't be anti-Yankee because my uncle, who took me to my first Mets game, was a diehard Yankee fan. Okay. And he could have taken me to a Yankee game, and it would have been a different story for me. Less heartbreak. And then and my nephew's dad is a huge Yankee fan, so I don't hate them.
Okay, no, fair enough. So I want to ask you this question: Nolan Ryan for Jim Fregosi, was that the worst trade in Mets history?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
I remember my dad just I was 3 when it happened, so I really don't remember it. But he would tell me about it over the years, how he cannot believe that they traded Nolan Ryan for Jim Fregosi.
It horrible trade.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. You look like you're getting upset again. I won't talk about it anymore. So. So tell me about the trials and tribulations of putting together that first pro wrestling convention. You think Sting was the guest. How difficult was that getting that together?
It was new. I didn't know what it would be. I had my vision of it, and for the most part, I would say it was very exciting. And at the end of the day, everyone was happy. The fans loved it. The vendors loved it and made money. The performers loved it. And Sting, there's a lot of reasons why that appearance went south the way it did. And it was a combination of, I think, the office not giving him the information, as far as what the payoff might have been. There had to be a lot of reasons behind his abrupt departure. And my partners were not, the most polite people in the world. So it was a combination of things. And I wanted everyone to be happy. So, and I'm trying to appease him, and I'm trying to, and I wanted the fans to be happy. So it was just a situation that went south. And that's the only regret from that convention. But for the most part, it was 95% a pleasant experience.
Are you still putting pro wrestling conventions together, or is that in the past?
Well, 30 years ago, those were my conventions, right?
Okay.
But there is one convention left to do for me.
Okay.
And it's in the planning stages right now.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. So
2022.
Okay, there we go. When COVID is finally done, then we'll get that convention going.
Well, for this one, it'll take a massive undertaking because it will be 30 years in the making to do this. And I've been approached by some people that want to do this, and they have the expertise and they have the experience. They have the ability to promote a huge event. And I'm excited about what we're laying out right now. That's all I could say about it.
Okay, and hopefully I could get to it. Hopefully,
it'll be in the New York area.
Okay, sounds good. I will definitely.
Where do you live, by the way? Where do you live?
I'm from Queens, New York, but I live in Windsor, Ontario right now.
Okay, so you're up north.
Up north, yeah. So originally I grew up walking distance from Shea Stadium, so that's why I was.
Well, hopefully the borders will be open by then.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I want to go visit my parents. I haven't visited them in about a year and a half, but hopefully.
Did they just extend the deadline till July or something for the borders to be open?
Yeah, I think it was July 30th, I believe, was the date when they're going to open the borders. Hopefully, I got my fingers crossed that I can visit Queens. I mean, I missed the pizza. You're from
born in Bushwick.
Bushwick, okay,
and that's where I was born and then raised on Long Island.
Okay, that's the one thing. When I go back to New York, there's two things I do: is get pizza and White Castle. Those are the two things that I miss.
There you go.
There you go. All right. So Vince Russo, you had a rocky relationship to begin with, to start with Vince Russo. How's that relationship now? Did you guys, are you guys okay?
Right now, yeah. I mean, we kind of have a detente, I guess you would call it, and even a semi-friendship. Once we got face to face in 2018, we talked it out on YouTube, and we kind of just treated each other like gentlemen, and my nephew is even part of his fantasy baseball league this year. So I mean, it's not a hateful relationship at this point. It's stable. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that. Fair enough. One of my favorite stories in the book that I thought was very entertaining. Mil Mascaras. He upgrades his ticket
John, it's Mil, John. What about the plane ticket?
How was it? Did he chase after you for years to get that money back?
It was only a year later. I mean, after that call, which came in a year after I'd left the wrestling business, and John, it's Mil Mascaras. Where's the plane ticket? I was like, Mill, I didn't authorize it back then. And it's a year later, I'm out of the effing wrestling business.
That's a great story.
I can't wait to see him again.
He'll probably ask you for the money. So you mentioned Mil Mascaras was actually a hero of yours. How disappointing is it when you discover that your heroes are not so great to work with?
It was disheartening because he was such a legend to me, and he was a hero to me, and I loved watching him at the Olympic Auditorium on the old tapes from years ago when it was on, and then seeing him debut at Madison Square Garden and filming him at the Garden and reading the magazines and even buying some Japanese magazines because he was on the cover or there was a feature on him. He was a legend. And then getting the opportunity to work for him, he was a worker like most of them are.
Were you at the Garden when he challenged Billy Graham for the title?
I was not. I was that was when I had gotten what year was that? 77, 78?
70, I think it was 77, yeah.
Yeah, I was probably at that point, my streak was broken because I had attended every Garden show since August 71 to mid 77. And I was at college and I lived at college that summer. And whatever it was, I wasn't going regularly anymore.
All right. So before we wrap this up, actually, no, one more thing. You were fearless. You told the Ultimate Warrior to F off because he kept asking you for more money. Do you regret saying that to him, or did you?
No. No. I wish I was there in person with him because I would have probably tried to deck him, and I would have got killed in the process. But he almost ruined that tour. I mean, that tour had a budget.
Yeah.
And the budget, we had a $250,000 budget. I mean, and that included my profit, included paying the wrestlers and the other expenses that were associated with it. And he almost screwed it up where it didn't happen because we were already promoting him because he had agreed but never signed a contract. So 25,000 guarantee. Then he wanted 50.
Yeah.
And then it was 100. Then it was like F you.
So if you had given him the 100, do you think he would have came back? Oh, well, I want 200. I think he would have kept going. Did you think he wanted to do the tour?
I think there would have been a lot of problems here because I didn't know the heat between him and Jake, the real heat between him and Jake, and I was going to put them against each other for that whole tour. So, after seeing the biography on him and the other Dark Side of the Ring stuff, and maybe he didn't come because Jake was going to be in the headliner match with him. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking now after seeing all this. But back then I was pissed. And then Jake hears the conversation and comes in and holds me up for more money.
For more money, yeah.
So that was kind of like, why am I even doing this? Because these guys are all assholes.
Yeah, no, I could imagine. And you have some wild stories about Jake Roberts. Did he really ask? Well, I'm not gonna say. I'm sure it's in the book, but he asked you to film him.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that.
And it's true that his wife called me a year later. Like, was it a year or two later? Cheryl Roberts, did you film my husband having sex with that blanket? I was like, what are you guys, nuts? And it's like, and he grabs the phone, tell her the truth, brother. I was like, you're both effing crazy, man. And that was it. And that was kind of the last time I spoke to Jake until I saw him at a Tommy Fierro 80s con a few years ago. And he's sitting at the table and I passed by and I was like, hey, Jake, I thought you were dead.
Oh, did he really said that to you? That's horrible.
That's what he
terrible.
Said. I thought you were dead.
That's
terrible.
I
didn't say anything back, but I muttered, I thought maybe you should be, after what you did to yourself.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible.
But that's Jake, even though he says he's born again and has changed. I don't think he'll ever change.
Yeah, no. Just one more. You worked for the Mets, actually. You worked for the Shelby Mets. So tell me about that experience. I know it's documented in the book, but tell me a little bit about
how. It was my dream. It was my dream job. It was like, they were my passion, and they were, even though I wasn't a fan of theirs for a few years for trading Stever, but they still were in my blood.
Okay.
And then when I had the opportunity to go to the baseball winter meetings, and there was an opening, and I finagled my way and got to meet the owner of the franchise, and I got hired. That was a dream for me. I thought I'd be in baseball for the rest of my life. And then I went into a nightclub, met a singer, fell in love with her, and messed my whole road of my career path. Just took it to another
just completely
dimension.
Changed. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really admire you. Went from wrestling to the Mets to country music to managing. You actually had the opportunity to manage the New Kids in the Block.
Well, I didn't manage them, but we had the opportunity if
Yeah,
my
yeah.
partners would have agreed to work out the financials. And at that time, we had all these acts that were being promised record deals, and my partners were like, "We got enough freaking acts. We don't need any more. I don't care how good they are. We're all getting deals with the record companies anyway, so we don't need them."
Okay.
And then it was like, boom, they explode, and then it's like, then and the company kind of closes up, you know.
How different would your life have been right now if you actually went ahead and managed the New Kids on the Block? You think it'd be any different right now, or?
You never know what
Okay.
happens. I mean, the music business is also filled with sharks, and especially in the roads that team navigated back then. It could have been a situation where it was taken away, or who knows what would have happened. I mean, it's kind of like the wrestling business in a lot of ways, the music industry, especially back then in the 80s. It was corrupt in a lot of ways. So who knows what would have happened, Whatever would have happened, I would have bounced back from.
Absolutely, because yeah, you were like you said, you lived a wild life, and you just whatever you wanted to do, you did. You chased your passion, and I admire that so much. I wish I had your guts. There was so many things I
Well,
wanted to
I
become.
think I'm insane a little. Maybe that's what it is.
Okay,
I
and
have this, I don't fear anything.
and you were a fantastic salesperson, by the way. I just reading some of the deals that you got in the book were just fantastic.
Life is a sales game every day. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of things right now that, there's a lot of opportunities that have dropped into my lap since I got back into wrestling, especially since the book came out. But you also got to keep pitching yourself. But now I'm pitching myself to film directors and movie producers and TV executives and other entrepreneurs who want to do business with me. So I think everything I've learned over the last several decades of my professional life, now it's just kind of like nothing intimidates me, nothing frightens me. And, most things may not happen, but the ones that do happen, then you get that satisfaction from it and you keep trying until, my end goal. I want to get out in 3 years. I want to be retired in 3 years. I want to just get out in 3 years. I have 3 years of podcasts left to go, and
Okay.
I have a convention I want to do, and I have some TV film projects that I want to do, and then I want out.
Okay. Are you saying that there might be a Matt Memories motion picture where they might make the book into a movie? Is that what you're trying to pitch?
There is some discussions going on right now that are intriguing.
Okay.
That's all I could say, because there's a couple of different things that go in different directions. So, I'm in conversations with, a few different parties right now about things.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. I'm sure there'll be a big announcement coming on down the road. So
there could be no announcement. It may not happen.
Announcement.
It's like, then I'll announce I'll be doing something else, a coffee table book, or, who the hell knows,
Okay. I'm sure you'll be doing something. So last question. What was the greatest match that you've ever seen? Greatest match of all time, in your opinion?
Wow. I really have to say it's a series.
Okay.
It's a series of Bruno Sammartino versus Spiro Sarion at Madison Square Garden. Those were my favorite. Even I was a ringside photographer, but for me, I was a fan watching that. And that was the one guy that I thought could legitimately, in a worked wrestling situation, win the title from Bruno. And I would have loved to seen him take the strap, and then Bruno won it back.
Were you there when? Oh no, you were too young. You could have. I was going to say Koloff when he took the title from Bruno. You weren't there for that one.
No. I wasn't even really watching regularly that year.
Okay.
And then I read it in the newspaper on January 19th of 71. He lost on January 18th, and I was like, in Newsday on Long Island, there was a big 2-page spread right in the sports section of Bruno losing the title, and I was shocked. I was like, holy smokes! Wow,
that must have been something, man. And I know they had a rush Koloff out of there because they were afraid a riot was about to break out. So,
yeah.
But who do you Pedro Morales, Bruno Sammartino? Who do you think the better champion was, or do you think they were both great in their own aspects?
I think Bruno. Bruno. I mean, I love Bruno more, but Pedro still had the fan base in a frenzy every month, and Bruno had his fans in a frenzy every month, and then they melded together. But I would say Bruno over Pedro.
Okay, I would have to agree with that one. So before we wrap this up,
You got to wrap it up. I forgot I had the call, and the guy's trying to call me. But
sorry about that. So anything you want to plug real quick before we go?
Just mattmemories.com is the website if you want to get a signed and numbered copy of the book. Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now podcast, pwspod.com. Patreon is patreon.com/Arezzi. And that's it. That's all I want to plug for now.
Okay, sounds good. Well, John, thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure having you on, and I hope I can meet you one day at that convention when the announcement is made. But again, thank you very much. Have a great day, and it was a pleasure talking to you today.
Same here. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. Well, this has been the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network Sunday special interview. I'm your host, Louis Carlin. Until next time, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe, everyone. So long. Bye-bye.